guys, it's Trina and I am doing another tag video today. Today I will be doing the audiobook tag version 2.0. This tag was created by Today in Jen's Library and SolMeansSun. I was actually tagged to do this one by one of the creators, Jen, and I also got a comment on one of my audiobook videos from somebody asking me to please do this tag, so I thought it was very fitting for me and I'm going to be doing it. So the first question is, name a book that was better on audio. For me, that is the Inheritance Cycle series by Christopher Paolini. I read the first book, Eragon. I read this one in the print format and I didn't like it at all, but I wanted to continue the series and see what it was all about. So I ended up just switching formats to the audiobooks of the last 3 books in this series, and I enjoyed the story so much more. So I definitely feel like this story was one that was better in the audio version for me personally. Question 2 is, name a book that was worse on audio than in print format and you switched. So I don't think I've ever had an instance of me switching from the audiobook to the print book, but an audiobook that I thought was better in print format, even though I did not switch, was A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I originally read the print format of this and I really enjoyed it, and I recently listened to the audiobook of it as a reread so that I can kind of refresh my memory of what actually happened in this book, because I'm hoping to continue the series soon, and I really did not like the narration of this book. The narrator's voice acting was not good. It was especially really horrible with the character of Lila. He just made her sound childish. Everything she said sounded like it was a question. He had no emotion in her character. Other people have loved it, but for me it just didn't work. I definitely preferred the print version over the audiobook. The third question is, who is your top female narrator and your top male narrator? I'm not yet at the point in my audiobook journey where there is like one narrator who I just listen to any book that he or she narrates because I love their voice so much. So I haven't actually ever sought out an audiobook just because of who the narrator was. And I usually am not even aware that if I'm listening to someone that I've heard narrate a book in the past, I'm usually not even aware that it's the same person. But I do have a couple of narrators that have done my favorite performances, and I talked about them in my favorite audiobooks video. It was Will Patton, who does the Raven Cycle series by Maggie Stiefvater. I thought that his voice and his tone really fit that series. And then as for the female narrator that I have loved the most, that is definitely January Lavoie, who does the Diviners series by Libba Bray. Her voice acting and her narration were so phenomenal that I definitely would love to listen to more done by her. Question 4 is, what's the longest book that you've ever listened to? I get all my audiobooks from the library, so I don't have a way to like go back and conveniently look up every single book I've listened to timestamp. Like, I don't know how many hours and minutes they were, but as far as page count, the longest book that I've listened to is A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin, which is 1,170 pages long. The next question is, what is the shortest book that you've listened to? And technically, if we count novellas, it was Pale Kings and Princes, which is from the Shadowhunters Academy bind-up of novellas. I did listen to all the 10 stories in that bind-up individually because I listened to them before that one book bind-up was even released. It's like a 40-page long novella, so it was probably like an hour long, if that. But if we aren't counting novellas in that, then the shortest actual book that I have listened to the audiobook for was Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire, which is like 170 something pages long. It's a very short book. I love that audiobook, by the way. I would definitely recommend it. Question 6 is, how do you listen to your audiobooks? Do you listen with an iPod, an MP3 player, your phone, and what kind of earbuds do you like? So first of all of my audiobooks that I get these days are from the Overdrive app, which is a free app that you can download on your phone or whatever smart device you have, and it partners with your library. My library and my Overdrive usually have a ton that I want. I just check it out, it downloads it to my phone, and I listen using just my phone. I don't use anything else. I usually listen at home where I can just put it on full blast, and my husband doesn't care. He's never paying attention to what I listen to. Very rarely do I ever listen to audiobooks using earbuds, but like if I'm traveling like on a plane or a car trip, then yeah, I would take those little, I don't know what they're called, they're just called earbuds, they're white. I literally know nothing about different types of earbuds, so yeah, listen on my phone using the Overdrive app, usually without any kind of headphones or earbuds. The next question is, should authors narrate their own books? In my opinion, if the book is a memoir or an autobiography about the author's life, I do think it's great for them to read it themselves. I have really enjoyed listening to like celebrity memoirs where they read their own story, because it's a very genuine connection that you have with that person telling their own life story, and the way that they they meant to tell it. As for fiction books, do I think that authors should narrate the audiobooks of their books? No, I don't, unless that author has experience with voice acting. You could argue that, well, the author would know their characters the best and they would know exactly how they meant that line to be delivered, but I know how easily bad or inexperienced narration can sound and can impact my enjoyment of listening to an audiobook, so I feel like I would just rather leave it to the professional voice actors to be the ones narrating an audiobook. Question 8 is there an audiobook that you wish could be redone, and which narrator would you want to redo it? So I've already mentioned this one, but I just kind of want to throw out there, I kind of feel like Will Patton would have done a good job with A Darker Shade of Magic, but since I've already talked about that book, my real answer is going to be A World Without You by Beth Revis. I don't remember who the narrator of this one was, but I really did not enjoy the audio of this one. He narrated it in just a very dull and monotonous, lifeless voice, and I have no idea if that's just how he narrates or if he was doing that to be like a personality trait of the main character, because that narrator does have like 100 audiobooks that he's worked on in the past, and apparently he's good enough to like keep getting jobs. But I did not like the narration of that book, and I never did switch formats because I just was wondering if it's a problem with the narration or with the storytelling, so I was afraid to like risk it and just end up DNFing the book, because it's just easier for me to finish audiobooks because they're just quicker, easier for me to get through. I have no idea what audiobook narrator I would have liked to do that one instead though. I just think that I might have enjoyed that audiobook better if it had been a different narrator. Question 9 is, what's the best audiobook that you have listened to, or your favorites? I have a whole video on that. I've got a video of my 6 all-time favorite audiobooks, which are all things that I have listened to prior to this year, but some of my favorites from this year have been Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel, Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire, 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher, but I would not recommend that one if you are going to be triggered by rape or suicide, because it deals with those topics in a very heavy way. But the audiobook quality was amazing. Number 10 is, what's the most recent audiobook that you've listened to? So I am currently listening to Waking Gods by Sylvain Neuvel, which is the sequel to Sleeping Giants. And I was listening to The Chemist by Stephanie Meyer, like literally this morning I was listening to that audiobook, and then my hold for Waking Gods came in and I was like, nope, see you later, Stephanie Meyer. I love this series better, so I just kind of hopped on to Waking Gods, and I'm already like an hour into the book. Like, I love it a lot. And then the bonus question in this tag is, what is a book that is currently not on audio that you wish was? And see, I don't know every single audiobook that exists out there, but I know one that my library is not able to get on Overdrive, at least not yet, is The Song Rising by Samantha Shannon. This is the 3rd book in her Bone Season series, and I enjoyed the first 2 books in that series, but I did not like the writing. It was tough for me to get through. It was very, very wordy, and then something big would happen in the end that was like payoff. And now that the 3rd book is out, I'm just like not really interested in continuing the series because I don't want to slog through that. I'm learning that that's just not a writing style that fits me. In cases like that, audiobooks do help me get through a book or something that I am intimidating, that is long, that is very wordy. If I'm not really liking the print version of it, sometimes the audio version will help. So I do wish that there were an audiobook format available for me from my library, because I think that that would help me get through it. However, at this point in time, I don't really know how likely I would be to pick it up, even if it were available, because I think I've just kind of lost interest in the premise that that whole series is about. So I really don't know, but that's just one that I knew of off the top of my head that my library does not have available. The only book that I know for sure 100% does not have an audio version available is Unblemished from Sarah Ella, because I asked her, hey, are you going to have an audiobook? And she said no, that her publisher just did not have that available at this time, but they would want to in the future. And I do wish that her book would get an audio version, because I think that would make it more accessible. So that's it for all of the questions in this tag, and I'm going to ask all of you guys to please answer the first question. What is a book that you thought was better on audio? If you don't read audiobooks, that's fine. You could just comment something else. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the comments. Bye!